It's always a great pleasure to be here with the brand finance community, and thanks David and Conrad for inviting again. It's been 2 years since I last attended the event, and it's also been really long since I've been given the opportunity to talk for 40 minutes. I mean, I've almost lost it and forgot how to do it like in 40 minutes, because it's always all these talks are now really short and concise. But nevertheless. And I was listening to Laura before I would make some comments on Türkiye's FDI brand. I've been involved in Türkiye's brand journey for the past 20 years. I was former head of strategic communications and crisis management, dealing with combating disinformation, hybrid threats. Also, all national campaigns and place branding until the brand office was founded in 2022, I think. So I saw myself when Laura was speaking, and it's really pity also, it's really sad to hear and to feel myself as well that place branding professionals are becoming like national security advisors. I think we have to be two different things, and we have to focus on place branding rather than dealing with all the things that I've experienced and Laura is now currently experiencing about London brand. And again, thank you very much for this opportunity. And as David also put it, investment is one of the 4 main pillars of any nation brand. And yet, as we all witness nowadays, global investment dynamics are undergoing a structural transformation. As supply chains become more fragile and capital allocation becomes increasingly selective, investors are placing greater emphasis on predictability, operational efficiency, and access to scalable markets. And at the same time, factors like time, resilience, sustainability, and long-term impact are becoming central to investment decisions. We are living in an age of uncertainty, or in an age where certainty, rather, has become the rarest commodity. Not long ago, globalization promised convergence, and today we're making huge efforts to managing a fragmented world order. Supply chains are no longer just economic structures, they are geopolitical instruments. Capital is no longer just financial, it's cautious, selective, strategic. And risk, moreover, is no longer singular, it's layered, overlapping, and continuous. We face a world of polycrisis. And risks that once appeared separately now arrive all at once. Geopolitical tensions, technological disruption, climate urgency, financial volatility. We're operating inside a permanent condition of instability and uncertainty, a world where geopolitical tensions, technological disruption, and all others do not occur separately, but, as I said, simultaneously. And in such a world, one question matters more than ever before. Where do you invest when the world feels uncertain? Because investment today is not only about return, it is about stability, continuity, and strategic positioning. That's primarily why we meet at a time when the global economy is no longer simply evolving, it's fragmenting. Global FDI flows, we see from all the fact sheets, UNCTAD, World Bank, etc., Financial Times, FDI intelligence, FDI markets, FDI locations. All data sets show that supply chains are no longer optimized for efficiency alone, but also for resilience. Geopolitics, and I stress, and I will be continuing to stress this word in a bit as well, several times, is no longer an external variable. It's embedded in every investment decision. Investors are no longer asking only one question: where can I grow? They're asking a more difficult one. And we face people like myself, like FDI professionals, especially in the vertical of promoting an FDI landscape like Turkey or any other place. We face this very question every day. Where can I operate when the system itself becomes unstable? In such a world, the criteria for investment change. Cost matters, scale matters, incentives matter. But above all, one thing matters more than all: reliability, stability under times of pressure, uncertainty, and systemic fragmentation. This is critical. Because foreign direct investment is more so about perception also now, and trust, than only about economics and finance. Investors invest in narrative also, persona, positioning, and place brand, as much as they make investment decisions based on balance sheets. By the way, at this very point, investment promotion as a professional discipline, working as place branding professionals many times too, was built on a fundamentally optimistic premise that the right combination of incentives, rankings, and visibility would attract capital to allocation. Present the data, polish the pitch, attend the forums, and investors would arrive. It's no longer. For much of the past 3 decades, that framework was seen sufficient, not because it was sophisticated, but because the environment was forgiving enough to reward persistence over precision. That environment is gone. The old framework is no longer enough. What has replaced does not respond to promotion. And I'm speaking as an IPA professional, investment promotion agency, formerly working for the presidency under Directorate of Communications as head of strategic communications for the entire nation. It doesn't respond to promotion. It responds to storytelling, the kind grounded not in aspiration, but in evidence, not in image, but in conviction, and not in what a location wants to be, but in what it demonstrably, specifically, and irreplicably is. The shift required is not a rebranding exercise itself or a digital upgrade. It's a fundamental reconception of what investment communication is for. Not to broadcast a location's existence, but to build the durable, specific trust, in Laura's terms, experience, I would say, quite similar, that moves capital in conditions of acute uncertainty. Not solely to promote, but to position. So I suggest that each IPA, known as Investment Promotion Agency, should work to reform itself into an investment positioning agency as soon as possible. That's what I'm trying to do in our own entity. And the uncertainty at stake has never been more acute. The conflict engulfing the Middle East, my neighbor, has injected a new layer of volatility into a global investment environment already strained by geopolitical fragmentation, tariff pressures, and capital polarization. For IPAs worldwide, particularly those in or adjacent to conflict-affected geographies, the storytelling imperative is no longer a strategic nicety. It's operational survival. In 2026, FDI is already more selective, more policy-sensitive, and more concentrated, with success depending less on volume and more on credibility, execution, and ability to align with evolving geopolitical priorities. So, my humble conclusion is that Türkiye's place brand story in this particular background, in general, and investment landscape in particular, is much like Joseph Campbell's observation that a hero's journey may carry out 1,000 faces, yet ultimately converge on a single unifying truth. This decisive truth can be narrated through countless data points, proof points, performance indicators, and strategic advantages. That's what we do on a daily basis, telling all that. And each tells a different chapter on its own right, like Türkiye's economic centrality, its young and skilled talent base, its reform-driven economy, being a rising manufacturing hub, or its rapidly advancing innovation ecosystem. But taken together, these diverse narratives align toward one coherent reality. Turkey has evolved into a nexus of the world, shining through resilience and most recently a powerhouse, as put by other countries, analysts, and independent observers. Turkey is seen as active, strategic, opportunity-rich locus where global flows of capital, talent, technology, logistics, and sustainability converge. Today, rather than walk through all 1,000 phases of the story, as we probably do every day, I will focus on just few pathways. It's resilient, nexus, and powerhouse role. One that clearly illustrates why Turkey stands as one of the most compelling and opportunity-rich destinations for international investors. I shall also begin by referring to a paradox which is always a headache or a stomachache for people like myself. For the past 20 years, it's my daily routine to wake up with this paradox. There exists a clear gap, which is felt over the past 3 to 5 years, even stronger, between how Turkey is often rated and what Turkey is actually capable of delivering. A gap between current perception and future potential, even present potential. And this paradoxical gap can in turn be seen as in ratings and on one hand, and the high-profile role that the country plays every single day in world affairs on the other. So I'm so really confused. I opened Financial Times, many other publications. They all talk about Turkey as a rising superpower, and I go back to ratings. There's a gap between the two. I'm really confused. So Turkey is still too often evaluated through old frameworks. As a middle power, which I appreciate, nothing wrong about it. As a regional economy, fair enough. As a bridge between East and West. But the world has changed. And more importantly, Turkey has changed. Turkey's investment persona best reflects this transition as how to we all should probably and perhaps re-educate ourselves about the country. I'm Turkish native. I'm doing this every day. I'm trying to re-educate myself about my own country. I'm waking up, checking everything and trying to refresh myself with this multi, layered reality that engulfs me and my own reading, and I blend it with my own reading on top of it. So, and because that's what we all should do, maybe it's just a recommendation, to be honest, because sometimes the categories we use to describe countries, any place, and its brand, city, region, country, etc., are lagging behind the realities and the value propositions those countries are creating. That's one piece of challenge that I kind of have to tackle every single day. And this is where Turkey, I started this name change. I'm the guy behind the name change in 2020. I won't dig into why we did it, but it's now Türkiye. So let's also try to re-educate ourselves to be able to pronounce Türkiye. Türkiye's story begins to diverge because Türkiye's investment narrative has been tested in a period of uncertainty. Over the last 2 decades, Türkiye has faced global financial crises, coup attempts, natural disasters. I had to deal with all these, natural crisis, head of crisis management. So terrorism and regional conflicts, pandemics, energy shocks, and supply chain disruptions. And yet, during this period, Turkey has attracted more than $290 billion in cumulative FDI and built an ecosystem of over 87 and 88,000 international companies operating within its borders. okay? And there is also a broader narrative which is coming into play now. It's a strategic framework that expands or that voices Turkey's ambitions in terms of scale, scope, and impact. The idea of the Türkiye century, which is a concept which I conceptualized in 2021, it's now the meta-narrative, meta-place branding narrative in Türkiye, Türkiye century. A narrative to which international public opinion seems to be less familiar, to be honest. And I can share the deck, even the larger one, which I prepared, and I had to shorten it for the purpose, for today's purposes. But I'm ready to share this to anyone, everyone, to be honest. So feel free just to approach and ask for it. A bit of FDI. FDI data. And, FDI is measured in two main methodologies. One is all the accounts that flow into Turkey's central bank. And the second method is what we call the investment announcements made by the companies. So according to the FDI flowing into central bank accounts, it's now a little over $13 billion in 2025. And in terms of announcements, we have more than 450 announcements amounting to almost $21 billion worth of FDI now stocked or waiting to be realized. But the announcement was made in 2025. So this is the meta-branding, the Türkiye-centric story, which is of a structural transformation. It's the grand strategy that touches on every existing possible vertical. Just as the and it's been mentioned also, United Kingdom has articulated its identity through initiatives like the Great Campaign, aligning trade, culture, and innovation, Turkey is articulating a similar alignment, one that merges geopolitics with geoeconomics, narrative with capability. Because in the 21st century, a country's narrative is not separate from its power. So when we describe Turkey as a middle power, for instance, we're not entirely wrong, but we are no longer fully right. Because the question is no longer where Turkey sits in the hierarchy of power. The question is how power itself is being redefined. And in this evolving environment, Turkey presents a clear and compelling investment case. In 2025, as I said, FDI inflows to Turkey increased by approximately 11%, reaching nearly or little over $13 billion, despite a subdued global outlook. And this performance reflects Turkey's ability to remain integrated into global value chains, respond resiliently to external shocks, and provide stability for investors amid rising global volatility and uncertainty. And global average of the FDI inflow to emerging markets is around, I think, 4 to 4.5% only, the average annual rise. So we are 11 to 11.3 or 4%. So Turkey's value proposition is further strengthened by its geographic reach and operational depth. So I just tried to give you a bit of background about how I devised the term Türkiye century in 2021. I was asked by my boss, Director of Communications. He said, the 100th anniversary of the Republic of Turkey is approaching, do something about it. That was my brief. I said, thank you. I went back to office. I think it's not here. But what I did was, which I call myself meta-branding. I just, it's a new aphorism I just came up with, meta-branding. I said to my staff, bring me all the newspaper stories and articles from, within 2 years passed, especially from those newspapers and media outlets that look for a good opportunity to criticize Turkey every single day. I'm used to it, so it's okay for me to. I'm really used to see that in any single media outlet, only in the West, but everywhere in the world. And they just went and came back with a big pile of, all these coupures in like newspaper stories and articles. I said, classify them: education, defense, health, agriculture. So let's do verticals. And they did it, and they brought it to me back. I said, okay, I said, find this very one article, even this one, if it exists, in all these media outlets, looking for a good opportunity to attack Turkey. Again, I'm now talking like a national security advisor. I'm not. I've never acted as a national security. But this is, I think, the dilemma of a place brander today. And I'm not really very happy about it. So they found all these articles from XYZ. I'm not going to pronounce any media outlet name. They brought it to me. We made this document, and it's only the cover which was blank. And they told, what are we going to do with it? I said, write on it. The Türkiye century, the right is Turkish, bölgesinde yükselen süper güç, the rising superpower in its own region, 2023, 100th anniversary, 2053, 2071. I just made 3. They're not, by the way, random, but I'm not going to go into the details. And I think it's not here, but that's the story behind it. So my methodology was to, come up with, to cover the spatiotemporal reach, which is clearer here. And then also learning from this document, all these media stories, here the tone of how Turkey's external narrative is heard, not the one I made or I pushed, to be honest. So, people were talking about a Türkiye vision or Türkiye in their eyes, which is already a superpower. They call it like open the FT, open Harvard's academic papers, open Middle East Eye, everywhere. So I said, if people are thinking that we are superpower, why should I not think that we are superpower? I started elaborating on it, and that's how the Türkiye century narrative was born in 2021. July 2021, and it was adopted as the official 100th anniversary campaign title. So over the past 5 years, Turkey's value proposition is further strengthened by its geographic reach and operational depth. With immediate access to Europe, the Middle East and North Africa, and Central Asia as well, as the nexus of the world, supported by robust logistics infrastructure and advanced industrial capabilities, companies can manage regional operations and scale efficiently from Turkey through a single location now. As global capital increasingly seeks reliable and scalable platforms, Turkey stands out as a powerhouse for investments, capable of delivering execution, resilience, and long-term value. So over the past 5 years, Turkey's investment landscape has not been static. It has been static. It has evolved through 3 interlocking narratives, as my title also reveals: resilient, nexus, and powerhouse. And they are layers of a single evolving persona. And let me take you through them very shortly. Resilient. Turkey's economic trajectory tells a clear story. GDP has risen from $238 billion in 2004 to $1.6 trillion over this 20 years. And Turkey enters officially now a high-income league for the first time, December 2025, with an average annual growth rate of 5.3%. And that's a map I drew for my own, daily work. I just to focus on to see how the nexus thing can be shown in geopolitical terms and juxtaposed with other geoeconomic, geocultural, It has become one of the largest economies globally, now 12th in PPP terms, purchasing power parity, and projected to rank by IMF and World Bank among the top 10 in PPP terms again in the near term. In 2050, Turkey is projected to be the 5th largest economy in PPP terms. Okay. And Turkey's resilience is surely not rhetorical in this sense. It has been tested repeatedly under real conditions, and during the pandemic and global investment flows contracted sharply. Turkey maintained investor confidence and continued to attract capital. And second, nexus. For decades, Turkey has been described as a bridge. I was wrong about it. Nothing. A bridge, though, connects two sides. A nexus, however, is different. A nexus is an active hub of interaction and engagement, rather than only passing through. A center of gravity. So Turkey today is not just connecting East and West. It's converging, uniting, and aligning markets and value chains, energy routes and logistic corridors, talent and technology ecosystems, finance and production networks. That's why I call it the nexus of the world. So that's the reason behind it. So Turkey does not only, again, simply sit between the regions. Just saving time, a bit of time. So this, all in all, this country brand journey, nexus and resilience, etc., they all strengthen Turkey's persuasive capacity as well, allowing it to project influence through dialogue, development, and diplomacy. A role increasingly appreciated and praised by international community for its peace initiatives and humanitarian efforts as well. So Turkey is now the only, almost one of the few maybe, if not only, country who can sustain talks between Ukraine and Russia at the same time. So in Turkey's case, the powerhouse depiction translates directly into strategic investments. The industrial mainstay connects Europe, Asia, and the MENA region and provides not only an engine of mobility, but also the infrastructure of value chains. Within a 4-hour flight radius of Turkey are 67 countries with a total GDP of $50 trillion and 1.3 billion people. Istanbul Airport is Europe's busiest aviation hub. Turkish Airlines is the largest network airlines in the world at the moment, serves more countries than any other carrier, operating scheduled flights to more than 350 destinations. Turkey, when I learned this, I was really shocked. I didn't expect it to happen, has the 3rd largest diplomatic network in the world, overtaking most traditional diplomatic heavyweights. So China, US, or US, China, and Turkey. And Turkey's commitment to twin transformation is our #1 priority. We aim to take every step with our green first and digital first approach that lie at the heart of our FDI strategy toward 2028. And the powerhouse. Let me be clear here. Power is no longer defined in traditional terms only, as I said. It's not just military capacity, not just GDP, not just diplomacy. Power has become multidimensional. Turkey today operates across all major categories of power. And just, I think I skipped it here. That's another kind of aspect of my work. I'm working on a new concept I just came up with my own joy at 360-degree power. So, and I first wrote about it in The Independent as an op-ed in October 2025. It's called Power in the Skies, something like this. And it tells how and why Turkey is depicted as a 360-degree power, going beyond and exceeding all other existing forms of power in IR literature. So, if, we can talk about hard power. In defense industry, the domestic and national production rate has exceeded beyond 85% now in Turkey. Interestingly enough, Turkey commands 72% of the global UAV and UCAV market. So every 10 UAVs exported, 7 are exported by Turkey. Needless to mention, soft power through culture, media, global narratives, the Turkish series, second, etc. I'm not going to go into all these myths and, the public wisdom. Smart power through technology, innovation ecosystem, sustainable power through renewable energy and green transition as well, and cyber power, through digital infrastructure and capabilities, and, building a startup nation now. And 5,000 young people were relocated to Turkey in 2025 thanks to our new visa program, Turkish Tech Visa Program. I think it's, again, little over 5,000 people, startup people, who relocated to Turkey last year. So Turkey's emerging profile is defined not by one form of power, but by the integration of many. So Turkey is now a 360-degree power, a form of power that does not operate in silos, a form of power that integrates multiple dimensions simultaneously, because the risk comes from everywhere in a Foucauldian manner. The risks, the polycrisis syndrome is felt everywhere today. So all these multiple dimensions of power, hard, soft, smart, and cyber, combined what I would call Turkey's additional layers: resilient power, humanitarian power, and peacemaking power, and also green power. This is not about being bigger or mightier, but it's about being more immersive and agile. And this is precisely where Turkey's FDI story becomes unique, I would say. Because investors are no longer choosing countries, they're choosing systems and models, as I tried to mention. So, can this country withstand shocks? They ask all these investors. That's my experience. Can it connect me to multiple markets? Can it integrate into my operations? Can it support my long-term transformation, digital, industrial, and green? Turkey's answer to these questions is increasingly coherent and increasingly visible in its investment landscape. So, to summarize, in a fragmented world, the winners will not be those who are the largest or the mightiest, nor those who are the fastest, but those who can connect, integrate, and endure. Turkey's FDI story is no longer only about attracting investment. It's about building a system that works even when the global system does not. And that's why Turkey is not simply a destination, a tourism destination, an investment destination, an education destination. We have more than 360,000 international students who are now studying in our country, making us, I think, the fifth or the sixth in global rankings. And it's becoming a model, going beyond the middle power, sometimes called as a superpower, as seen by futurists. Michael Friedman say Turkey is a superpower, or will be a superpower by 2035-40. Fair enough. International media and policymakers. But something more complete is now being defined by Turkey, as I call it, a 360-degree power in a fragmented world with the capacity to combine, converge, and unify all the countries' trade routes, ecosystems, sectors, etc. And let me end with the essence of Turkey's investment persona in a world of fragmentation. Turkey is not an alternative Turkey is the connector. Not on the sidelines, but at the center of global flows. A nexus of geography, nexus of talent, nexus of sustainability, nexus of technology, and nexus of value creation. Converging geographies, sectors, people, ideas, products, routes of trade and energy, value chains, ecosystems, industries, markets, during economic shifts, rewiring of global trends. Capital seeks resilience, speed, agility, diversification, and trust. And Turkey continues to be a resilient partner for every investor looking to grow, scale, and innovate and build the future. Turkey is the powerhouse for investments, and we invite everyone to be part of this new journey. And we are now entering a new era, probably have already done so, an era where the winner will not be those who are the mightiest, as I called. Turkey stands at the center of this transformation, not as a bridge, but as a nexus, not as a regional power itself only, but as a global powerhouse, and not as a conventional actor, but as a resilient partner. So, and acting as a 360-degree integrated power, the question is no longer why Turkey? That's our generic deck. Why invest in Turkey? That's what our Minister of Economy, Mehmet Şimşek, also asks very often in lieu of why invest in Turkey. The real question is, why not Turkey, especially now? Because in a fragmented world, and we don't have the voiceover, because in a fragmented world, the greatest value lies in those who can bring it back together, to connect everyone, to unify everyone.
A good investment
and that's
is like a journey.
What Turkey
you need a solid companion.
Just to show you a couple of clips from our recent work. These are from 5 to 6 years ago. This is where, don't think that it was easy to internally communicate that Turkey is no longer only a bridge. We just done it very, very recently, and that's where our president pronounced it for the first time. That was 2 or 3 weeks ago when we introduced the new incentive and tax exemption package in Istanbul, powerhouse for investment, the new kind of, not a campaign, but the new package. So that's where he said Turkey is now not only a bridge now. So that's our Nexus world. And that's what we did with a London-based creative agency, Topham, Guerin, and Toby is with us, head of Topham. So that's a video we did together. Budget was, an issue. Very small budget. And he's looking into my eyes. Very small budget. Of course, we are trying to benefit from technology. That's AI only. There's no human factor in this video, only the image. That's an AI video, done pretty well, by the way, by our friends in London. So that tells the story of open the door to endless opportunities, open the door to sustainability, open the door to innovation, open the door to, that's the trick, the comms trick, to diversify with one umbrella term. That's the new financial center in Istanbul. I'll be there tomorrow. Just don't want to delay the whole program. And that's the new powerhouse for investment. There's the new package which was introduced by Mr. President 2 to 3 weeks ago. It's now being ratified by the Parliament, to be honest. It's going to be ratified probably and finalized very soon. And I'm building a microsite now, a website, only dedicated to promote what our new incentive and tax exemption package offer. And people are, if you can just scan through the social media, people are really shocked that Turkey is offering such a package. Thank you very much.